Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
What's up, everybody? Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Nate the lawyer. I'm here with MLS and Joe Good Logic, and also potentially criminal. And we are here talking trash on a Friday, giving you guys our legal loving of the madness that's going on today. So first, let everybody introduce themselves. MLS, tell the people where they can find you, bro.
Yeah, my name is David Helm. I'm a practicing criminal appellate attorney out of Michigan, and you can find me at MLS Making Law Simple. It's my YouTube channel. Sometimes I stream there, so check it out. And then on this Saturday, actually, I've got a Lego interview coming up with the Broken Baker, who's a Danish layman, a professional juror over there in Denmark. So, so check that out. Yeah.
Potentially criminal. What you got coming? What's going on with you? What's going on with the channel, bro?
Not much. You guys can find me at Potentially Criminal here on YouTube and on Twitter, apparently upsetting people about the Brian Koberger sentencing. Yeah, got some things going on. Just got done kind of looking, talking a little bit about the Candace Owens thing.
We're getting into today.
Also, yeah, really getting into the Ethan Klein suing people for copyright infringement, which has been hilarious.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Well, we are definitely going to be talking about Candace Owens today. And obviously, you guys don't even know. You guys don't need an intro for Joe. But Joe, tell the people what you're up to.
I'm Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Logic, New York attorney, who just had to re-up my registration. That's always annoying. But yes, anyhow, I live stream and once in a while I make a video if I ever figure this thing out, and I come out and hang out with you fine people. You're like, this is my social circle. Whoever decides to show up on a given week is basically my friends of the week. So hi guys.
Well, what's going on now? Before we get started, let me give a shout out to our girl Danny, who's usually here on the panel. She's just had her baby, so congratulations to Danny. The baby's name is Eli. So he's I think there was a little problems earlier from when I was looking at a couple of minutes ago, but everything seems to have resolved. So, Danny, we love you. Congratulations again, and one down. Hopefully you'll be like Joe. How many you got, Joe? 20? 25? No, Joe has like a lot of kids. My wife is like, all right, so let's just jump into it. First, we're going to jump into Trump Epstein. Here is my summary snapshot. Trump was told, allegedly, now this is all allegedly, Wall Street Journal and Fox News have reported that Trump was told that his name appears in the DOJ's Epstein records. But what I think the mainstream media fails to also notice, mention is that no wrongdoing was relayed, or there's no reports that they said that he's on the client list or anything like that. Just his name appears in the records. Now, why that's not news is because we all knew Trump's names appeared in the records when they did the Epstein's first release. For instance, his names were on the flight logs because he took flights from Florida to New York, just got a ride on Epstein's plane. So it's not, for some reason, the media is treating it like it's some huge deal that his name is in the Epstein files, but they're there. Second, the DOJ says it is not releasing anything further, citing privacy and lack of prosecutable content, which has made some people upset because they said, we just want to see everything and let us be the judge of that. Next, we had the court ruling this week that said that they would not unseal the grand jury transcripts after the DOJ asked the court to unseal the grand jury transcripts. And most of us knew that was going to be an uphill battle because that's generally done in secret. The next thing was the DOJ, I think it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, actually questioned Giselle Maxwell in prison. And people were trying to figure out, why are we questioning her? Because, so that type of thing. And she does have her appeal to the Supreme Court because of the Epstein deal. I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2007, the government made a deal with Epstein that every one of his co-conspirators, anybody who did any crimes with Epstein, would not be able to be prosecuted by the United States. They came to that deal with Epstein. So in the plea agreement, it says none of his co-conspirators could be tried for any crimes. So Ghislaine Maxwell says, I'm one of his co-conspirators. I the crimes they charged me with were covered under that agreement. And the Southern District of New York said, no, that agreement only was good in Florida. You're in New York now, so we're prosecuting you in New York, even though there's still federal charges. So we can talk about that. Last Congress, the past couple of days, bucked the Speaker of the House. And what they did was the Speaker of the House put them on recess until September, but before they went on recess, they issued subpoenas to the DOJ and to Maxwell to come and testify at the House. First, Maxwell, she's going to give a deposition behind closed doors, and then they're talking about a public thing, which is going to be crazy. And the last thing is obviously the base of Trump has multiple different angles on this. Some are saying that this is a cover-up. Others are saying that there's nothing to see here. Now I'm throwing it to the panel. If I left out anything, please.
You did. You left out one. You left out one thing, which is an interesting split. In that, I saw on X here. I can share the link with you if you're so inclined. A resolution that the Senate Republicans were bringing in to release all the Epstein files that was blocked by the Democrats, allegedly.
Please put that up, yeah.
And I can share it with you. It was shared by Eric Dougherty, and I'll give you the links so that you can pull it up, and I'll share it with you here. And it's interesting to see, it's like in the House, it seems as if the Democrats are screaming, they're hiding the list, and then on the Senate, that the Democrats are the ones who are blocking a bill to actually have it be shared. So I'll share the link with you in the studio.
Yeah, but I do.
What's interesting? Well, I was going to say what's interesting is that Trump. Everyone knew Trump's name was going to be mentioned because he was on flights, and things like that. So we knew that existed. I don't think anybody pretended that didn't exist. And then for him to not release it, what is the likelihood that Melania's name is contained somewhere in there? And that's why all of a sudden now they don't want to release it. Our first lady's name is listed in there.
I don't think that's the problem for him.
No, they would be blocking out the names of victims.
Yeah.
So I don't think that wouldn't track. No one ever thought that they were going to name the women who were trafficked. So if in fact she was someone who was trafficked by Epstein, I think that they would carve that out. I would assume. Right?
No, and I think honestly, it's not going to be. It's not like there's Trump cornholing some kids or anything on the plane right next to Jeffrey Epstein, like high-fiving each other. But I certainly think, just like I don't doubt that Trump sent a birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein, was like, hey bro, we're the broest of bros that I mentioned here, my bro, love Donald. I'm sure there's like him and Jeffrey Epstein had a very close relationship. I'm sure they were broskies. I don't think Trump got to go to Pedo Island, but I do think that they hung out a lot. And I think Trump is, for whatever reason, doesn't want that to come out. Okay, fine. But too bad. You made this part of the thing. Bring it out. And then, this idea that Ghislaine Maxwell might get a pardon. If she does, I'm done.
Okay. Oh, okay. Two things on that. I got to tell you this. I agree. It makes sense that he probably would have sent him a birthday card for, a significant birthday, given the nature of the relationship at that time. I will never believe that Donald Trump ever coined the phrase enigma never ages. Not because he doesn't know the word enigma. He clearly does. I'm just saying to treat a concept like or a noun as if it's just inanimate as an animate object and coin it in that way. Next, you're going to tell me that he wrote Hamlet. I don't believe it. That's just, if you read anyone who's ever read 3 Truth Social posts from him knows he would never come up with enigma never ages. There's a lot of things you could say that are qualities about Donald Trump, but poetry ain't one of them. So that's why I think it's ludicrous. And the language that they use is not the enigma never ages, which is part of it, but it's designed to say the whole thing about like a beautiful secret or something like that is designed to imply that the two of them are sharing a secret about about abusing children. And that's what it's designed to imply. And that's why I think that what's written there to me is wholly illogical to believe that he actually wrote that.
Well, here's that part, Joe. I definitely could see Trump as like, hey, he looks at his assistant like, punch this up for me. Like, I don't think, yes, Trump is not that flowery with his language, but I could easily see his assistant, whoever he's there with, punch this up, make it sound good, make it sound amazing. This guy's a smart dude. I totally think that's what happened there.
What is
But the
meant by
biggest thing I
all
want
of...
to... Oh, no.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just, when these people say they've got the goods, just drop the goods on the table. Let me see the goods now.
Super chat came in. It's asking, didn't Trump kick Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
That's the rumor. That's what we heard.
And he
what's
did,
meant by all available Epstein files, though? I mean,
yeah.
Right. So let me read. This is what Joe shared. It says, breaking, Senate Democrats are subjected to approving resolution that called for all available Epstein files to be released. It was brought by Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, Republican of Oklahoma. Would you? Well, I can just play the clip because the clip is here.
Justice to the victims and transparency to the American people. Mr. President, as I said before, we want transparency. But the courts control the grand jury. The judges that oversee the courts control the grand jury. We, in this body, can have resolutions back and forth and suggest that it be done, but truthfully, the judges have to do it. AG Bondi and the president has both already called upon the judges to release this information. What my resolution is simply saying is we agree with the president, we agree with AG Bondi on the judges and calling upon the judges to release it. So as if in legislation session and notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of S-Res 335, which is at the desk. Further, I ask unanimous consent that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motion to reconsider be considered and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there
Struggling
objection?
with this one.
Reserving the right to object, Mr. President.
Senator from Arizona is recognized.
Mr. President, let me explain.
All right, so he reserves the right to object.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, what does all available mean, though, too?
What
Because
is
this can easily
what
be
can
the
they
phase.
what can they
This could be
release
the
that's
phase
not
one
available?
bullshit all over again.
What can they release that's not available?
Well, what does all available mean, though, Joe? Is the thing.
I think that means everything that the government is controlling in its possession. That's how I would understand it.
Well,
How would you understand it?
Well,
I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's just a
because
resolution.
they could say
right?
all available. Well, what's available? Well, available is what we make available.
If they okay, so let me answer this. If it just said all files, not all available files, would that not end up manifesting as all available files? Like they're not going to release files that they don't have.
That would be all files, available or otherwise.
Yes. Well, I'm just
available,
saying, what's
like
what's
a
available?
qualifier. To me, it's a qualifier that allows for multiple interpretations. That's
Well, it's not. Well, is it available now, or what's available tomorrow, or available upon declassification? Like that's a weasel word.
Is
just
it
say
available?
everything is available. Like everything. God, everything's available. Everything. Here you go. Here's the entire thing.
Yeah, are they allowed to redact? That's a good question. Does available releasing it? But it's heavily redacted.
Yeah, why don't they just say release everything that's not cheese pizza?
Well, listen, I
easy enough.
My opinion with this whole Epstein thing is, I think Trump got the word that he's in those files and it's not pretty. Whatever is it, it's just not pretty. It may not be pretty for him. It may not be pretty for somebody he's protecting, but whatever's in those files. And Trump, when he came on and literally said, he was like, hey, Obama, Clinton, and all of them created those files, and it's a whole bunch of nonsense, and essentially he discredited his appearance in the files before we even get to see the files. And remind you, they said they were releasing phase one, then they said there's nothing else, then it's only what's credible, then it's everything. So whatever's going on, I think most people would realize they know a cover-up when they see it. And I just don't know what's going on and why they just haven't released it, but hopefully they will one day. But I have no hopes that right now the president will release this. He just will not. They won't. And him trying to blame this on Obama and Clinton even makes me more suspect that he's not going to release any of this stuff, because he was in office when Epstein was arrested. It was his DOJ that prosecuted Epstein. It was the Republicans in 2007 under Bush who gave Epstein a sweetheart deal. So to blame the Democrats just seemed kind of, it seems like he's grasping at straws. So to me, something's there.
Well, the one thing though, if there was anything, And given how like the FBI is full of complete lunatics, since 2021 onwards, and even then before 2021, I mean, half the government acted rogue anyway and did what they wanted in defiance of Trump. Like nobody decided, oh, I'm going to leak this. Oh, I'm dropping this, that, or the other. What, that is so sus to me that nothing came out. And I think they realize, okay, yeah, it sounds bad, but I think after 10 seconds of reading whatever it is they send, you're going to be like, okay, this is worthless. So, whatever's there, the problem is though with Trump, he has such vanity that, unless he gets considered to be, without stain, it's something he wants to hide. And, I think this is just him being a complete tard right now.
I think
And
it's
he doesn't
logical.
have to be. It's completely unforced on him.
I think it is logical to conclude that if he is in the files and makes him look bad but not criminal, that he didn't do anything, abusing children and stuff like that, but just makes him look really bad. Like he's making some, gross type of comments that they managed to find that he had said, that he'd be like, he went through the whole thing. He had to explain locker room, the whole grab him by the thing. And if there's like a dozen of those, he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to have to explain a dozen grab him by the pussy. So, if there's that sort of thing there, I can understand him saying, I just, I don't want to deal with this. And he probably doesn't, he likely wouldn't even remember saying half of them. There's a lot of reasons. I agree with the panel here. This is a cover up. The question that ultimately comes down is why? Like, what is the motivation for the cover up? And, for the first thing people are going to go to is the notion that he has abused children.
Well, that's obviously what it looks
the reason for that is because we know what we know about Epstein and all the speculation we have about what Epstein did with children with respect to just, third parties, because there's two different elements to the Epstein story, right? And I've been classifying this on my channel as you have bucket A, which is his abuse of children for his own personal benefit, which at least hundreds, if not thousands. He was at certain points in his life abusing 3 different children a day. I mean, this guy was a vile, vile monster. That's the part we all know. That's the part that's relatively documented to the extent that we got convictions against Ghislaine Maxwell, because that's what she was convicted for, facilitating that bucket A stuff. But what we really care about is, and what MAGA cares about and everyone's screaming about, is the bucket B stuff, which is which third parties was he facilitating the abuse of children with? Who was he, feeding these children off to? Was that something that some covert agency, CIA, FBI, Mossad, MI6, FSB, or some combination thereof?
You're not allowed to talk about them, Joe.
Yeah, that's a joke.
You must wear Shin Bet. That's okay. You guys have a turf war with Mossad.
Yes, clearly,
oh my
obviously.
God.
So the point that I'm getting at here is why. So let's think about this for a second. Why do we think that he was working for a covert agency? It's really primarily the deal that he got in 2007, which was insane, and back that up together with the statements from Acosta that referencing that there was intelligence, that he had some sort of relationship with intelligence. And together, and he gets this big deal. So everyone thinks, oh, okay, the reason he got this crazy, awesome deal, despite there being tons of evidence against him, is because this whole thing was some hookup with an intelligence agency, and that's why the DOJ backed off. But I don't know if you guys heard the interview with Mike Benz that Viva had, where he was basically spelling out how it's almost certain that he had a role as being some sort of financial fixer, likely for intelligence agencies. And it could be multiple intelligence agencies, perhaps all 5 that I just referenced. And that the nature of the work he was doing would qualify him as a cooperative contact, whereby he's basically doing Iran-Contra type of work that would create other sort of international scandals if it became public. And that could be a separate motivation, which would explain why Acosta or the CIA or other agencies would be like, we need this guy. And disgustingly say, forget about his private life sins, but we need him. And that would have Acosta saying, okay, I'll cut him this crazy good deal because he's intelligence. And we just naturally go toward saying, oh, that the intelligence is using him in bucket B for that type of disgusting activity, rather than it being about that they really want him as a financial fixer. So that's what Mike Benz was speculating. I think there's at least some logic to that, but if you guys think that that's a crazy thought, I'd love to hear your response on that.
It sounds potentially logical. However, it doesn't negate the fact that Trump releasing nothing is bad and is
100%.
stupid and is a foolish thing to do.
100%.
So at the end of the day,
yes,
especially running essentially his entire campaign on it.
Yeah,
well,
or at least part of it.
I want to because a lot of people say they've seen this, but come to find out, many people have not, and they're shocked whenever I read it. But this is Epstein's non-prosecution agreement, and this immunized all of the people who did things with the children. They're immunized by this allegedly. So this plea agreement is this non-prosecution agreement.
it's
Quote,
insane. Yeah.
Now I'm just going to read it verbatim. In consideration of Epstein's agreement to plead guilty and to provide compensation in the manner described above, he was going to pay some of the victims. If Epstein successfully fulfills all the terms and conditions of this agreement, the United States also agrees it will not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirator. That is as broad as it gets. And then including, but not limited to, then it lists these 4 names. So this is the craziest. I've never actually seen such a non-prosecution agreement that immunizes all your co-conspirators for any crimes they committed. This is insane.
Yeah,
This
literally.
From a legal
That's
standpoint, this is very interesting, and I like the video that you did. You dropped a couple of days ago, talking about the circuit split that we have. My fundamental issue with that particular language is it binding on the government when the immunized party didn't actually sign it or agree to it? But apparently everyone's agreeing on that it does cover these people. They're just arguing over into what jurisdiction, which is interesting.
I think, David, I think the idea that if I cite a plea agreement and they agree not to prosecute you and you get immunity, I don't think you have to ratify that, because I mean, like, I think it'd be logically implied. You'd be like, "Yeah, cool. I'm out.
Well, I'm just looking at the quid pro quo. Where's the quid pro quo there? Because that's generally what you do.
Third party beneficiary of a contract.
That's true.
It's third
you're a
party
benefit. Yeah,
beneficiary.
like I'm taking the hit for you. It's kind of like life insurance. Well, I didn't have to do anything to earn this.
And these deals do happen where let's say one person says, I'll take the charges if you it happened in the Recator case, right? I'll plead guilty to everything if you don't prosecute my wife and girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
But this is just like everybody who I conspired with, and the nature of the thing. Go ahead, Joe. Joe's trying to say
No, that's okay. I will say this also. Here in New York, they seem to recognize there was not really much of a dispute from the government that it even includes Ghislaine Maxwell in its reference there as an unnamed co-conspirator. They didn't dispute that she was properly immunized in Florida. The nature of the disagreement, as you all are aware, is whether or not that is binding on New York. So, and whether it's localized to the jurisdiction wherein the immunity came from. So that's really. But as even here in New York, it was never argued by the government that she would not be covered by that immunity deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I do agree, though. It becomes an issue of, can the federal government preclude every other federal, yes, the DOJ can preclude the DOJ from prosecuting. But I don't think at some point you can tell the state of Florida and the state and the DOJ can preclude the state of New York from saying, well, these crimes don't count for you unless they actively agree to it.
I could see that where think of, even going back to, just general partnership law, right? One partner can bind the other. I think the same thing applies. We have one legal entity, which is the federal government, and its independent authorized actors can bind it.
But just so we're all on the same page with the legal arguments, I read the Supreme Court, the writ for cert, and I read the Second Circuit's opinion. there's no, just so we're all on the same page, there's no disagreement. She is covered under this agreement, and she is immunized under this agreement. Now, 4 circuits, for instance, the 3rd Circuit, which is Jersey, the 3rd, the 4th, the 7th and 8th Circuit, no, the 8th and 9th Circuits, all say that the agreement that she has is bound nationwide. So she couldn't get prosecuted anywhere. There are 2 circuits that say the opposite, that say it's only localized. It's the 2nd Circuit, which she was prosecuted. So literally, if Ghislaine Maxwell walks across the river, she couldn't be prosecuted, but she goes into New York. So she's asking the Supreme Court to resolve that circuit split. If I come to an agreement with the AUSA, Assistant U.S. Attorney, and that person immunizes me, does that immunity cover nationwide? Now, if she's in the 5th Circuit, they're going to say yeah. If she's in the 2nd Circuit, they're going to say no. Now, I think she has a real argument, but I don't think the Supreme Court will take this case because it's just too hot, right? But what do you guys think? Do you guys think the fundamental argument here is that if I come to an agreement with the federal government that they will not prosecute me, is it okay then for, let's say, California to say, well, we're going to prosecute you, we don't care? Now, we're not talking about states and feds. We're talking about it's all feds. It's either each district is a unique sovereign or each district is representative of the sovereign, which is the United States government.
I mean, under very basic agency law, I think it should cover the entire nation. I mean, it's fundamental, common, basic agency law.
Yeah, they're all part of they all have the same boss. All the district attorneys or the U.S. attorneys do. So yeah, I think you'd have to argue that. And yes, is this going to be a situation where it sounds like because she's not a favorable looking defendant and not a good looking case that they might just slide this one off the table? Sure, it sounds like that might be the issue. But it is interesting that everybody agreed the whole time. Everybody agrees, but we're just not going to do it.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and to look at it, you sort of have to imagine, if you want to, because what Nate is really advocating for is saying that the charges against Ghislaine should be dismissed and she should be immediately released because she's non-prosecutable, which feels almost not like justice. But I guess the best way to look at it is just say, okay, imagine if she just sort of take her out of the picture and just imagine 50 years from now, she's dead. Would you rather the law in the books be that a prosecutor is giving immunity, and then when someone gets immunity, that they know that the immunity is actually worthwhile and impactful? Or would you rather that prosecutors don't have the ability to ever properly immunize anyone, which would ultimately make, you would think, most people who have intelligent attorneys say, why would I sign an immunity deal? How can you force me? How can you force me? Also, think about one last thing. I'll for you just to contemplate. How can you make? How can a judge force me to say to plead and reduce my Fifth Amendment rights and say, well, we immunize you now. You have to tell the truth and you can't plead the Fifth. It's like, of course I can plead the Fifth just because I've been immunized in this jurisdiction. I don't know what's going to happen if I drive 50 miles north and I'm in a different jurisdiction. So that's ridiculous. So no, I would stand there as an attorney for someone who got immunized and still doesn't want to testify. I would be like, no, how can you force him to testify when some other prosecutor in a different jurisdiction is waiting to shackle him for whatever he says in this courtroom? That's insane. That's a complete violation of his Fifth Amendment rights. That's exactly where I was going with the whole Fifth Amendment right to. Yeah, no, because most immunization offers are made in lieu of testimony, right? And so usually, I mean, vast majority of the time, then you're going to be compelled to testify and waive your Fifth Amendment rights. And now if you could be prosecuted still, then I would absolutely refuse to testify, even if I was granted immunity. So it's going to be a huge mess.
So just to be clear, we're all saying Ghislaine Maxwell should win. But she's not.
Yes.
Is that what
she should be out of prison. Yeah. But blame, don't blame. If you're going to be mad at anybody, be mad at the federal prosecutors that granted the immunity deal, right? Yes. They screwed up. Oftentimes people are like, this isn't justice. And then, be mad at the defendant or be whatever. It's your government that screwed up. So tell them that they screwed up and that they insist that they don't do that anymore. I think Acosta should be drilled about exactly that guy should be publicly drilled. What exactly happened that you cut this insane deal? That we need to know what you were told. I thought they were going to get they thought they were going to get Epstein, and I blame Hillary really for all of this, because if Hillary hadn't taken out Epstein, we wouldn't be in this mess.
No. And I think it'll be interesting because he could try to claim, if he tries to claim any sort of privilege, like, oh, those, we had plea discussions or whatever. I wonder what he's going to try to hide behind, but I can see the DOJ saying, oh, no, we waive all privilege. And Ghislaine Max, it's like, we waive any privilege we have, but the issue then becomes Epstein's estate might not want to waive any privilege. So then I think he could probably hide behind whatever happens there.
Well, with that, let's move on to Tulsi Gabbard, because I think this is where we're going to have some discussion. And just so everyone understands, Tulsi Gabbard is the director of DNI, and she has come out. Now, there are some people saying that her spectacle is essentially a distraction from the Epstein stuff. Others are saying this is real evidence of Obama's treasonous conspiracy that he was trying to hurt Trump in his presidency. So here is the snapshot. The DNA, Tulsi Gabbard declassified documents alleging that the Obama-era intelligence operation was aimed at delegitimizing Trump's win. The way they did that is in September of 2016 and of December of 2016, intelligence reports said that specifically that Russia did not hack any physical voting machines and did not change any physical vote tallies at that time. She has since even clarified and said that the intelligence that Russia was trying to interfere with the election was sparse at best, and it wasn't like the intelligence wasn't enough to come out and say Russia's trying to interfere with the election. Fast forward to then January 2017, Trump has won, and this is before he takes office. The Obama administration releases another report saying that there was Russian interference. They tried to do all this stuff to essentially help Trump win. Tulsi Gabbard says that information was manufactured by the Obama team after to discredit Trump's win. So she said that this was a treasonous conspiracy, and I'm just going to say it. Treason is ridiculous, but that's what she called it. And she's also calling for an investigation. Now, the arguments are that number one, Obama would be able to use the presidential immunity from the Supreme Court, because effectively he is making a decision as president on so whatever he says would be covered under presidential immunity, unless you can prove that it was a personal benefit, which I think is going to be almost impossible in that. But the second part is that all the people under President Obama are not immune for presidential immunity. And the argument against them is that they committed perjury to Congress when all of them testified to these facts, so they may all be available to be prosecuted under the perjury aspect of it. Republicans are calling for a special counsel to investigate, and the biggest retort to Tulsi Gabbard is that she is misrepresenting the findings. That yes, in fact that in 2016, September and December, the conclusion was that Russia didn't actually change any votes by hacking into voting machines, does not mean that they didn't interfere with the election, because you had all this other evidence. Now, who else backs up the fact that back in 2017 that Russia did try to interfere with the U.S. elections? It was a Senate Intelligence Committee led by Marco Rubio coming out saying, yes, they did, and they favor Trump. It was also the Durham report, Trump's special counsel, who also did the same thing. Also, you had the Mueller report, which I didn't realize this. Mueller was actually appointed by the Republicans, and they came out to the same conclusion that there was interference. And also Trump's DOJ, his inspector general, also came out saying that this happened. But the conflicting report was the House Intelligence Committee. They also sent out a report at that time saying that number one, Trump did not collude with Russia, and that the evidence of Russia trying to influence the election was minimal. So with all of that background, please, if I left anything out, please correct the record, but that's essentially where we're at now. Will Obama be prosecuted with any else be prosecuted? Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
The only thing I would supplement from your background there is that the finding from the House was specifically that there was no intent by Russia to try and help Trump. And if anything, they seemed to have taken as a foregone conclusion that Hillary is certainly going to win. And they had potentially very damaging information about Hillary that they could have released before the election and withheld from releasing, which you would think if they wanted Trump to win, about her medical condition, that she was basically medically psychotic, and that if they wanted her to lose, you would think, and you're sitting there trying to assess what does Russia want, and you're Obama and his team, and you see they have this information, they decide instead of dropping this in October when it could help Trump win, which is supposedly what they want, we're going to save it till after she wins the election so we can discredit her and show what a complete clown she is after she gets elected. That you would think would lead any sane people to conclude that they were not trying to help Trump win. And your conclusions, which were based largely on the Steele dossier, are completely asinine and outside. Not only was it outside protocols, and not only did they do everything they can to try and keep Trump from knowing about the international intelligence community's assessment by pulling those briefings out, but that they actually seem to, in certain ways, have a preference for Clinton over Trump. So those are, I think, important backgrounds as far as understanding the potential wrongs that Obama and his administration committed.
But just to also be extremely clear, that was one out of all the other investigations that said that. All the other ones concluded, as you did say, that Russia preferred Trump to win. They wanted to hurt Clinton, and they did, as you say, held back information because they assumed Clinton was going to win. They were like everybody else. We think Clinton's going to win, and they held back information to use against Clinton when she won, but she actually lost. So that was in the Senate and all those other ones, but they just came to a different conclusion. So I would say this, even if everything that you're saying is right, Joe, the conspiracy or the treason would be the House, the Republicans in the Senate, the DOJ, like all those other people who concluded the same thing as the Obama people concluded too back in 2017 would all be a part of the conspiracy and would all have committed treason.
If the question is whether or not Obama could be prosecuted, the answer is absolutely no, especially under Trump v. United States. There's absolutely no way. Now, whether or not the other ones underneath him, any other agency employees underneath him could be prosecuted for treason or conspiracy or anything like that, I say it's weak at best and probably not. Now, to the issue of whether or not they committed perjury, good luck with that one. I think you're going to be hard pressed to prove that, or let alone bring charges. This entirely is distraction. What are you talking about, Epstein? We're talking about Obama now. You know, that's exactly what this is.
It's a distraction. Go ahead, Sean.
I mean, well, the biggest thing is statute of limitations for perjury and lying to Congress is 5 years. So,
so it's done.
So it's already done. It doesn't matter, no matter. Yeah. So it's done anyway. And, you know, we have James Clapper did this whole not wittingly thing when, you know, the NSA was collecting data on everybody. And he did that during the Obama admin. Like, these guys can lie. They're scumbags. They're glowies. They're going to lie. You know, nobody should be surprised. And yes, I agree. Obama's immune because even like he's acting as a malicious scumbag, he's directing the intelligence community. You know, no different. Like, I am in charge of these guys. I'm doing an executive act. You know, like the Supreme Court is going to say that, you know, if it got to them, he's immune. It's an executive action.
This is the exact argument that Trump was trying to make with regard to the Jan 6th stuff, right? Yeah. Or, you know, all the election contention in 2020. It's like, well, I'm the president and I'm here to oversee and make sure that the election went smoothly and there wasn't any interference. Obama can rely on the exact same argument. It's just
wording, and then conclude that Trump did a conspiracy, a treasonous conspiracy, because he was saying that Joe Biden was illegitimate, just like Obama was doing to him. So I think, unfortunately, legally, it seems like a nothing burger, but she could put up some more. She's put up some more evidence. So we'll see. But
I mean, it'll be great to see them being scumbags. But
I'm going to respectfully disagree with each and every one of you.
Cool.
So I want to start with this. I am of the firm belief that the reason this came out now was purposefully to deflect from Epstein. Okay. I think that was the objective on the timing here, because it seems as if what Tulsi came out with is like 3/4 of the way baked towards getting where they wanted to go. And releasing information and doing this properly would have been to have it fully baked. So I am of the opinion, and you can even draw inference from the fact that Trump was throwing out one thing after another, which would hopefully, from his perspective, be red meat for MAGA. Like throwing out there that about renaming the Washington Commanders back to being the Redskins, the different things that he was almost like, it's almost like he was testing what will work. And then he came to this one on let's go after Obama and his administration. And that seems certainly to have helped relieve some of the pressure. In one way, it relieved the pressure. In a different way, that it actually increased the pressure is before he brought this story up, no legacy media and no Democrats were screaming that they wanted Epstein. It's because he brought this thing up here and now. That's the only reason we've been hearing them screaming. Go back and look 2 weeks ago when MAGA was screaming, what the hell are you talking about? And your conclusions here are asinine and complete 180. And he's turning on MAGA, saying you're not really MAGA if you're interested in Epstein. At that point in time, all the 95% of Democrats are silent. Dead silent. You would think they'd be leaping on that, but they weren't, because they know how damaging it is to one of their sacred cows, being Bill Clinton. They were deathly silent on it. But as soon as Tulsi Gabbard comes out and drops a report a week ago, all of a sudden now we see congressman after congressman screaming about Epstein files, Epstein files. The day before Tulsi came out, we saw Nancy Pelosi get on TV and say the whole Epstein thing is a deflection. It's a deflection. There's a video of her saying that, and then the very next day they did a 180-degree pivot where all we've heard about for the last week from Democrats is Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. So in that sense, I'm kind of happy about the fact that this is only increasing the push for transparency, because now this is something that the Democrats are willing to hold over his head, because Obama is a much higher level sacred cow than Bill Clinton is my personal opinion. That's the first thing I'll say is I definitely think this was thrown out as a deflection. But I will respectfully disagree with you when you say that there's no way that there's anything here. I agree that there's definitely not treason, that from a legal perspective, there's no way this could possibly be treason. And that if you're using the term treason, Trump or Tulsi are using that, they're not lawyers, they're speaking colloquially. And the same way that people label Trump as being some sort of terrible woman, even when he was found to have committed sexual assault, they're able to use the R word about him, and that's considered totally fine because it's colloquially. So I think it's also fine for Trump or Tulsi to be referring to treason in a colloquial sense, whereas we as attorneys should clarify for our audience and say, no way in hell is this legally treason. But I also think that this is not the same, the nothing burger that all of you seem to think it is. And I can walk you through that if you want. I just feel like I've been talking for a while already. So I don't want to over dominate the conversation, but
well,
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you the reason why I believe it's a nothing burger in the criminal sense. Because do I think there's something here in terms of them trying to? Yes, just to put my cards on the table, I do believe Obama and the Obama administration exaggerated I think that's clear, right? He wanted to hurt Trump. I think that was clear. But my argument is on the criminal legal front. And you've already agreed with the what's it called? Treason. And when it comes to conspiracy, perjury, and the other things that they could get them on, the changing of the documents, those things have 5-year statute of limitations.
I think you get them on RICO.
You can't get them anyway. But then even
it's always RICO.
So let's
it is always RICO. The same way they tried getting Trump on RICO. If what Trump was doing in 2020 is a potential RICO violation, this is no less the same thing. This is no less the same thing. Yeah, that basically you want to call this group of people who now start engaging in a series of crimes for the purposes of meeting a certain agenda. That you want to say that that's a RICO violation. If it's a RICO violation that you can charge them in Georgia for, and it's a RICO violation that over here in theory you could raise a RICO violation. And as soon as you have one overt act that's happened, one crime that's happened within the last 5 years, which I'm pretty certain we can, as far as the cover up,
2 in 10 years, 2 in 10 years,
2 in 10 years,
yeah.
Which is much more than 2 in 10 years, but you need to get back within 5 years, and I think you'll get one within 5 years. So, and you'll certainly have plenty of overt acts. So the predicates would be based on fraud. And I'll tell you this. I mean, I can get into the whole presidential immunity because I think you guys are completely misreading Trump v. USA. I think that you guys are giving way too much of a pass. Now, I don't think Obama will ever be indicted. I need to be clear on this. I don't think they will indict him. And I do think it would be a challenge to indict him. But to tell me that it's legally impossible for it to be done, I don't really accept based on reading of Trump.
So you would have to say under Trump v. United States that Obama was acting in his own personal capacity, not in the capacity of the president of the United States when he was doing these things. Let's assume they're factually true. No, you still think as
no, you don't have to say that.
President.
Go ahead.
I don't think you have to say that. I think that when he's sitting down and he's meeting with Brennan and Comey and Clapper, and he's having these meetings there, it's very hard to qualify that as anything other than what starts off as an official act. But under Trump v. USA, if your actions are manifestly wrongful and palpably beyond your jurisdiction, in that case, you lose that official status and it becomes like an unofficial act. And then you no longer have immunity. The question now, you can't look into his motives, and that's certainly a damaging thing for a prosecutor who wants to go after Obama. But I would tell you that when you ask yourself, okay, assuming you trust this report, assuming that there's validity to this ODNI report from 2020, which says that he was doing all these things, that he's pulling the briefings, that they're abandoning normal protocols, that for reasons that they say they cannot even understand why the hell they would be going through these back channels. And the only logical conclusion is the reason they're going through these back channels is so that Trump, the president-elect, who would be reviewing these presidential daily briefings, would not be aware as to what the actual assessment of the intelligence community is. That is no longer, at this point, to me, if you're trying to keep the incoming president, you have to remember the time frame here. We're talking December of 2016. He's now becoming president for the first time, and they're purposefully trying to keep information from him, allegedly at the direction of Obama. If you can actually establish that, that to me is manifestly wrongful. And that would take an official act into being something that potentially could be steps to lead toward abandoning.
But hang on.
Yeah, hold on. I want to be very clear. Wrongful does not overcome presidential immunity. For instance, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Obama had a drone strike kill an American citizen on foreign soil. He said, "We're going to kill that guy." That was deemed to be lawful, even though they were saying that was unlawful, that was wrong, but they still gave him. He would still be.
But that's the part. That's the part he has absolute immunity for, because that's his exclusive Article 2 powers of conducting international affairs. So I agree that he does have, and philosophically he certainly should have absolute immunity, despite how awful and evil and human being he is for doing that. I still think that that under the law and under what makes sense, he does have absolute immunity for that, because that's bucket one. There's three different sections here. That's absolute immunity.
But now let's apply your logic to what just happened. Obama has absolute authority over what's classified and how information, and Trump wasn't president at the time. He had no actual legal authority to that information. Right. And like you're saying, since it's a core Article 2 power that he should have absolute immunity to what he does with that information and who he gives it to.
President-elect Donald Trump is not president. Obama is still president. He's still acting his official capacity. And if he wants to do something outside of the normal sort of channels and the normal sort of procedures, that's still his prerogative under Article 2. And I don't see it, even if we want to consider it wrong or dirty or whatever, I still don't see that it breaches the immunity.
I don't see how this area here, him meeting with Brennan, is an Article 2, is something that is constitutionally something that he is part of his duties.
Who's Brennan's boss? He's in charge of the intelligence community. It's an
he's in charge of the executive branch. I agree with you on that. I'm simply saying I don't know that everything he does in that realm is necessarily, if you tell me when it comes to foreign affairs, that under the Constitution, I agree with you. It's 100%. There's absolute immunity there. Over here, I think that when you're talking about handling intelligence and what to do with those steps of intelligence, I think that one of the things that Supreme Court told us to look at is if there's any sort of mutually shared there's any sort of mutually shared duties with respect to that element, and now would not be something that is granted absolute immunity, but could be assailable. And it starts with the presumption of immunity, and it's difficult to overcome that presumption. I'm simply saying, if we don't overcome the presumption here, tell me where it would be. Now, you want to tell me this doesn't fall under official acts. You want to try and argue to me that this should be qualified as Article 2. And if in fact a court were to find, like you're saying, David, that this is his core, this is part of his core powers, in that case, then you have no other conclusion other than the fact that he's completely immunized. I'm simply saying I can see arguments being made to say that this is not exactly under the rubric of what is his constitutional duties specifically, and certainly certain meetings he's having, because what the Supreme Court also said is a meeting with Pence that he has could in certain ways be official duties, certain ways it's not official duties, and you have to look at step by step, and there could be many steps, and likely were many steps along the way there, that this is not about trying to further the executive branch. If he comes along and he says, hey, and he has a whole chain of emails, and I'm not saying there is such a thing, but I think you would all agree with me that if there's a chain of emails of him plotting and saying, hey, what steps can we do to try and subvert his presidency? No one would say to me, oh, that's part because he's talking to Clapper and Comey. Oh, that's in there, and he's their boss. All of a sudden now, under the Constitution, that's something part of his core powers. I don't think anyone would think such a thing. And it almost comes across to me as if that's the mindset that people are naturally coming to, and I just happen to disagree with that mindset. Well, I think it's official duties. I think we should start by assuming it's official duty, and then see, hey, was he manifestly wrongful here? And if it was, then it becomes an unofficial act, and he's not at all immunized. I don't think any of this is going to play out. I'm just talking from the perspective of what can happen here.
I actually agree with the counterpoint that that's an argument that could be made. I just don't think, for me personally, it's just not convincing, because I think as soon as you talk about having a meeting with your intelligence people and you're talking about what you're going to classify and what you're going to put out, I think that's a core Article 2 power. He's exercising his authority as president. He is president. He owes Trump nothing at that point in time. And I think the argument is going to be, well, if you're doing it for the election stuff, which again, it's essentially the same thing, we could do it for the intelligence stuff, because it's, and essentially with the election stuff, they said that's the exact same thing. He met with the AG. The AG told him it was the best election ever. There was no evidence, and then they tried to use that to RICO him, and the Supreme Court said you can't use that because it was under his core power.
Okay, you keep using the phrase core power, and I think that's the wrong phrase to use in understanding Trump v. USA.
Fair.
It's
fair
core.
Point.
It's core duty. He has. Right. There are certain powers that he alone has. But if he's exercising those powers, if it's illegal for him to kill John, and just imagine a scenario that it's definitely legal for him to kill John by poison. It does not become legal because he orders a member of his military as commander-in-chief to go shoot the guy in the head. That doesn't legalize it. It's a matter of if he's in the performance of the functions that he's obligated under the Constitution to perform. That's what makes it an immunized activity. So just because he's talking to people who are his underlings, that does not all of a sudden now become a core function. It can become, it may be official, but it's not every conversation that he has with them is a core function. So that's why I think that position I'm taking here now, that it's not a core power, but it's more it's an official act. It's an official act is probably is a fairer way to assess this situation.
I would like to, let's move on to our friend Candace Owens, and you guys got to let us know in the comment section which side do you agree with. Now, Candace Owens. So this is going to be a little, so I'm going to read up, because I know there's a lot here, but so I literally typed all this out so I can read it, so we're all on the same page, because I think it's all important to understand whether she's going to be successful or not in her defamation claim. So here it is. So first we got to talk about Amandine Roy and a woman named Ray. So I'm calling them Roy and Ray. There are two bloggers on YouTube and other places that started this. Back in 2021, they released a 4-hour YouTube video claiming Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, was a man. Her real name is Jean Michel something. She's committing identity fraud, and that she abused Emmanuel Macron when he was underage, when he was 15. That went to trial. So Brigitte Macron sued those two bloggers, and that went to trial. At trial, the trial court said that they defamed the French first lady.
Is that true? They said they defamed her, or they got
I'm
on libel and
reading
other things.
I'm reading it right here that both women were found criminally liable. I mean, both found guilty and criminally liable and of defamation. They were fined and faced public condemnation. The court statement says that the statements were false, hurtful, and dishonored Macron's reputation. So that's what happened at the trial court level. Then they appealed to the appeals court. Now, this is where things get a little wild.
Well, I was just gonna real quick. I did want to say though, it seemed really weird. You defame this woman, and you only owe her $13,000 in like damages. I'm like, how bad was the defamation really?
Because they do it only based on how much. So it's not like here in the United States, we have $1 billion.
Was it done on the cost
it's based on income.
Okay.
Yeah, so they do it like you can pay this, so it's enough to make you pay.
Also, these people were broke. Okay.
Yeah, these people ain't got no money. 13,000 is a lot of money for them. So then it went on
a lot of money for anybody.
Yeah, for anybody. So they appealed and won. The appeals court said, now this is where stuff starts getting crazy. The appeals court said that calling someone transgender in today's day and age is not defamatory. In some cases, it's a good thing.
It's brave.
Yes. So that is not defamatory, and they threw that out. Even if they said you're a man, it doesn't matter. It's not defamatory. Not today. Maybe 20 years ago, but not today. The court also ruled that they were lying. They generally believed their lies, and that they were repeating rumors that were already publicly out there in the press. So, in other words, how can it hurt your reputation when it's already out there and other people are saying it? They just put it on a YouTube video. The court also said that this was a free speech issue because they are public figures, and that this type of thing could be said by them. The court lastly said that their language was not specific. It was very vague, incoherent, and they were saying things like, hey, it's possible, this is what we feel, this is what we think, this is what this evidence showed. So essentially they were presenting the evidence and saying, this is what it shows, that type of thing. So the appeals court dismissed it, and that was all she wrote. Now, enter Candace Owens. Candace Owens helped them win their lawsuit. So then she went and she started making the same claims, except she went farther. She said that these were absolutely true based on what they said, what the appeals court said in France. So she said these were absolutely true. And the Macrons, in suing Candace Owens, changed their tactics. So I know everybody out there saying they're suing her because she said it's a man. That's only part of the story. The rest of the story is they're actually suing her because they're alleging that Candace is saying that they is accusing them of committing multiple crimes, and they can prove that that's untrue. They sent Candace Owens 3 letters and had conversations with her, giving her all the information on why this isn't true. So the first crime that they said that Candace says they committed is identity theft. In other words, Bishop Macron is really a man. She's acting like her husband or whatever. She's supposed to be really her brother, and she is committing the crime of identity theft. And they presented Candace pictures of her and her brother together, and her birth certificate showing that she's not a man, to show that, hey, she is not a man. She is not committing identity theft. Candace then took all that information and said it again. The second one is when it comes to statutory blank. Candace Owens said that Bridget Macron committed statutory blank because it's true. When Bridget Macron was 39 years old, she had 3 kids and was married. Macron was 15. She was his teacher. Matter of fact, her daughter was in the class with Macron. So they were classmates. She then starts having this relationship at 15 with Macron. The parents find out and actually remove the male Macron out of the school after they find out that he's banging his 38-year-old teacher with 3 kids. They remove,
and he promises to come back and marry her.
He promises to come back and marry her.
Yes, he's like, mon chéri. And he's getting on the train, and the fog's rolling in. I shall return for you.
So now you lawyers will love this, because these are the same people who sued Fox or the media. You lawyers will love this. Candace Owens said that was grooming, that was this, and also it was statutory blank.
That's a lot like it.
Yes, but you guys are going to love this. The complaint now states that was defamatory per se, because in France, the age of consent is 15.
Well, that's not going to work.
So they're saying that they're accusing her of this lie, saying that they committed crimes in France when that is absolutely not true. He was 15, she was 39, and their relationship was lawful. There are other. There are.
Your Honor, actually, you can have sex with a 15-year-old in France. It's okay.
This is the ultimate actually argument. You can actually you can see the meme right there.
It's actually not pedophilia. It's a biophilia. It's because it's like.
So I'm not. Again, this is what happens when you read 219 pages of this crap. All right. Yeah. So now we got that argument. So then they're also saying that there were other arguments, like Candace is saying that Macron is only in power because the CIA mind controlled him through MK Ultra, and now he is part of he's taking his orders from the CIA, who has a mind controlled in the MK Ultra. They're saying that's, I don't know how they're going to prove that's false, but they're saying that's also false too. And last but not least is that she is saying that they're committing incest, which is illegal in France because they are related. They're blood relations. She's saying that they're related by blood,
which is a weird one on top of it.
They've also showed that Macron and the Macrons aren't blood related. So in other words, they're not committing the crime of incest. And there are a lot more things. There's 22 different charges, but that's essentially the crux of it.
Yeah.
So people are saying that Candace Owens, now Robert Barnes is saying that Candace Owens is done. Her lawsuit, the Macron's lawsuit, is going to slay her. She's going to owe millions of dollars. This is the guy who was defending Alex Jones. But then Viva, who is also a friend of the show, is saying the exact opposite. It's saying that this is going nowhere. This is all BS. Now, I'll throw it to the panel since we have the full picture. They've lost in France. Now they've come back and they've sued. Now, last thing too, they're suing Candace in Delaware, and they're not suing her in federal court. They're suing her in Delaware because the companies that Candace runs are Delaware corporations. So that's why they were able to sue them in Delaware. So that's what's going on. So I'll throw it to the panel. I'll start with Sean.
Can we get this moved to the 9th Circuit? That's what I want to
So, I mean, I've started to go through it. We only got partway through it when I was looking through it, so I didn't get to the whole. Well, actually, it's okay to have sex with a 15-year-old in France. Yeah, that's really what we need to hear right now. Thank you, attorneys. This is going to turn out a lot like the Carl Jobs situation. And I don't know if you're aware of that lawsuit, Nate. He was a guy on YouTube here, and he was claiming Billy Mitchell, like kind of like one of the OG gaming dudes.
Oh, yeah.
He's suing me because I called him a cheater at Donkey Kong. No, he got sued because he claimed that Billy Mitchell caused another guy to commit suicide and a bunch of other shit he doubled down on. So yes, it's not the fact they're calling Brigitte Macron a troon is the problem. It's she's claiming all kinds of other shit that, you're accusing people of committing crimes, and you're, like all that stuff is what's going to get her at the end of the day. Now, is she going to be able to, is she going to be able to make first? I think there's some claims she's going to make. It's not as easy for the Macrons as people would think, but Emmanuel Macron's worth like $50 million. He was an investment banker before he got involved in French politics. Like, they're not broke. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he can afford to go after them. And also, it's certainly, the lawyers involved in this, like you said, are the Dominion lawyers. So they have no problem collecting scalps, and they're doing this for their own reasons as well. I do want to see a subpoena, though, because you could do a subpoena duces tecum. You could do a subpoena for depositions. You can also do subpoenas for inspecting premises. And usually that's in a personal injury context. I wonder if they're going to do a subpoena to inspect Brigitte Macron at some point. Your Honor, she has to come into court. I just lift up
the dress.
Candace says
let me shove my hands down your pants.
The other day, Candace said the only thing that would convince her is essentially Brigitte Macron coming and doing an interview and a blood test to prove that she is who she is. So that's what she said. It's the only thing that's convincing. And without that, she still has she doesn't have actual malice. In other words, she doesn't know that she's actually
do we have actual malice here? I mean, I haven't watched any of the videos except for one where she was comparing the picture of her brother to her and things like that. Yeah. Well, I haven't seen any of the other stuff.
The actual malice argument that they've derived is that they've been speaking with her for about 3 months. And so the first time they sent her a demand letter saying, hey, here's all the information. Here's why this is false. She then wrote back and some questions.
That's the hilarious part, though.
Mm-hmm.
you are the president of France. You are the president of a nuclear armed nation. And you're worried about some chick who like runs around with Kanye and like has, and of the saying the Holocaust didn't happen arguments, making some of the weirdest and goofiest ones out there. And you're like, oh, we need to set the record straight with this person. Like,
well, that's the other problem the Macrons have is that she's almost certainly has a very strong Rachel Maddow, Tucker Carlson defense of nobody but the truly insane thinks that I have any pretense of being living in reality.
Nobody believes me.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also, I guess the idea is like, they've gone after, he went after the biggest threat, Marine Le Pen. He knocked her out of the election this time around. So he's like, I've settled that threat. The next biggest threat. And he just trades aside Candace Owens. And it's like, man.
Okay. But this is not the first time they did it. They went after someone who had only $13,000. So, and
I
again,
can argue
that's not, I agree with you, Sean.
Yeah, but that was inside France.
$13,000 is a lot of money. Right. $13,000 is a lot of money, but it's like, if you're going after someone who made so little money off of doing it, she's likely made a great deal more money than they have. So I'm sorry, you were saying
this is also like the Barbara Streisand effect a little bit. Like, I don't watch Candace Owens. I would have never have thought anything about the French president. I didn't even know they had a president or a first lady until this lawsuit was filed. Or the first man, whatever it may be. But everyone's making memes and stuff about Michelle Obama in the bulges, right? But no one chalks it up to anything other than a meme until you sue. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, well, is it true?
Well, you have to say
100%.
She's Brigitte Macron is not, I mean, I guess the pictures back in the day she was a looker, but now it's like, ugh. And then you really have to acknowledge, hey, there's some real creepy shit happened with your president and his first lady when, like 25 years ago. And you're like, yeah, I get it. It doesn't look good. And now you're just kind of blaring that out to everybody.
I didn't even know that people were saying that Brigitte Macron was a man until this lawsuit.
Oh,
and that made me start.
And
that made me start
for a while.
I'm saying is that made me start looking it up. It's exactly what David's pointing out here. This is the perfect Streisand effect, where all of a sudden everyone's like starts just raising the question, like, really? Wait, why are people saying, that's interesting? And they've really made it much worse if their objective was to try and silence people.
But let me be very clear about the actual malice part. Their actual malice, like I said, was the first letter. Hey, we're doing this with all this. They provided her birth certificates, pictures, like all this evidence to show that she was actually a man. She was born, and it was a setup. In other words, we do it once. They did it again, right? So she made the same claim. Then they did it again and provided all this evidence. Hey, here's our voting records, all this stuff. Then she was like, no. Then again, she said the statements again. Then they did it a third time, and they provided her all this evidence. And then she said it again. And now they sued because they're trying to say, hey, we've provided her the evidence time and time and time and time again, from birth certificates to this, to this, to this. And they lay out the evidence they presented to her. And they're saying, no, at this point, it's a reckless disregard for the truth. And that's where they're going at.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. He's in his second term for president. Like, he can't run again. I'm pretty sure he can't run again because he's been president for quite a while now. Like, and this is some to think people in Europe truly believe, given Europe's political orientation in a lot of areas, they're really going to care what Candace, this Candace Owens woman, she says that, she's a man. It's like, are they really going to know? And to be fair, most people in France, half the people in France are Muslims anyway, so they don't care. They just don't want Macron in power anymore. So, what's the damage and what's the harm? What have you really suffered here? I mean, this is
that's what I was going to go with. What's the damage? It's not even
your country. Like, this is just so. You're gonna have to go in front of a jury, and they're gonna be like, "Why are we here?"
Hold on, just to be clear, they don't have to prove damages because they're going after for
no, I understand that, but it's like you're gonna have to show. Like the per se, there's presumed damage, but even then, a jury is going to be like, what were you at? Like, you don't have to presume that you don't have to show damages, but you're still going to have to show them. because the jury's going to be like, even if you instruct a jury, they're going to be like, why are we doing this again?
Well, like, for instance,
you're in France.
Here is some of the evidence that they pointed to for, like, she's not her brother. Birth certificate, birth announcement, childhood and family photos, voting and public civil records, the evidence produced.
It's all fake. I don't believe it.
Public
I'm
public
insane.
appearances with her brother and judgment from the prior court cases.
Yeah.
So, and they're doing that for all of these things. Again, if at what point now, I do think you're right. I think the Rachel Maddow defense is but don't forget, Rachel Maddow and MSNBC just lost $30 million womb collector case.
Mm-hmm.
And they use the same Rachel Maddow defense too. Hey, we're just an opinion show. But in the womb collector case, for those who don't know, they were so out for Trump that they defamed the doctor, saying he was the womb collector and he got $30 million. But the reason why he was able to overcome is because the judge said, yes, they were allowed to say it first. But when they got absolute proof from the other side that this was not true, they went on and kept saying it. That overcame the whole fact that they were an opinion show, because at that point it wasn't an opinion anymore. They were now pushing a false narrative. So they did make the distinction where if you're an opinion show, you can say yes, blah blah blah. But if you're given the actual proof multiple times, as they did with the womb collector case, the womb collector won, and he's not the womb collector, but he won and got $30 million.
Yeah, you're talking about the doctor who. You're talking about where they were alleging that in these ICE centers they were just forcibly, and that was the thing. Like, they claimed they were forcibly sterilizing women. Well, no, it just turns out when you live in like Guatemala or El Salvador, you don't have medical care. They bring you up here, and it's like, oh wow, lady, your undercarriage is toast. We need to get this out of you to save you. And like, sorry, but yeah, you didn't get medical care for the first 30 years of your life. This is the only way to protect you, and. But then, and those women go, like, I didn't know what was happening. It's like, but you did know.
No, but
if you didn't understand
a lot of that was lies, though. Yeah, because a lot of they showed the women consented. They had some of the incidents. They had cancer. So
it all kind of goes back to the whole when they claimed they were drinking out of toilets.
Yeah, it was
all happened. Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe. Joe was trying to get inside.
Yeah, and I just want to make the point. Some you might have been mentioning earlier that it's the cumulative statements. Under defamation law, the judge is going to look at it statement by statement, so that everyone who's watching should understand that when they're analyzing it, they're not going to look at cumulatively. She said this, and this together. This, is some sort of pattern type of thing. They will break down statement by statement, saying, "Is this one defamation? Is this one defamation? Is that one defamation?" So, in that sense, even if she said, 50 statements, where at the end of the day, each one is analyzed on its own merit as to whether or not it's defamatory.
Yes, correct. So, but again, what do you guys give? To be honest with you, I'm kind of 50-50 because I can see a judge looking at all this and saying it's not here. But then
I haven't looked at all that. I haven't looked at all the allegations, so I can't comment on all of them. But I have a feeling that this is going to get settled outside of court. This is eventually going to get settled in some way. My suspicion is, and like Joe said, they got to analyze each one individually. She's probably going to get hit with a stray or two, but I don't imagine it's going to be a terrible amount of damages.
No, I mean, she'll come like it's a lawsuit at this point. They're arguing over whether or not somebody's a tranny, and you're one of the most part.
And in the United States, also like France, it's not defamatory to call somebody a tranny.
Yeah. But I mean, like, ultimately, that's really what this is all about at the end of the day. You are the president. You are the president of like a G7 nation, and you're doing this. Like, I hate to use a Robert Bernstein, but Candace has already won.
Yeah, no, she's going to monetize this.
Candace has already won. Like,
she's. I don't think she's going to want to settle too quickly. I think she's going to want to milk this for all the content she can get out of it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it makes her a star on this particular story, and might help boost her numbers. So why would she? I don't think she's going to settle anytime soon. She may ultimately settle if she feels that well has run dry, but. I agree. It wouldn't be for a great amount of money, probably. I mean, look,
this is not the death knell. This is not $50 million and she's going bankrupt.
There's no $1 billion judgment to the Macrons.
Now, I want to throw out something that was posted by this account, and it says that I think it's backing the French president, but it's making the distinction that, hey, Trump has sued multiple times in both presidencies for defamation from third parties like journalists and so forth and so
And he
forth.
lost a
How
fucking
was that
shitload
different?
of them.
But he won the one for ABC.
Yeah, he won recently.
ABC.
He's
He
got
won.
like
He's got
he's
the,
won like
the
he's 3
CBS
for 3
settlement
right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would this do you think that may have had let the French president think like, hey, look at the success Trump has been having, 3 for 3 lately, and they called him a blankist. It wasn't true, and and even now, I think even the blankist claim
Was the CBS one defamation, or was it that it was the selective editing?
Selective editing for CBS. The defamation was ABC, but for the ABC one, I thought that was a no-go. But it was the fact that, remember, the judge said Trump committed blank and allowed for Eugene Carroll to get more money from the repeat defamation. But
assault rather than
she was convicted for assault. But remember when she went back in front of the judge and said, hey, he defamed me again, and the judge said colloquially, when he said the word blank, so he is a blankist, because colloquially that's what people meant. So ABC went and said, hey, and then the judge said, well, no, ABC is a informed party, and they know the distinction between civil blank and criminal blank, and the fact that he wasn't found guilty of blank, but he was found guilty of assault. So that's what got Trump over. But that's a very fine line that they parse, and he won. So how does, now understanding that, do you think the French president's chances are better understanding that Trump won, even with such a fine distinction, where you did have a judge say, colloquially, people understand what happened to be blank, even though it wasn't?
I don't know that the colloquial element is going to play in over here. I don't see how that would play in over here. I mean, I actually brought up the whole colloquial issue when I was talking about Trump calling the Obama actions treason. So I definitely understand how there's a general pass that's given to that. I just don't understand how. I don't think Candace. Is it are you saying? I'm not sure I understand your argument. Are you saying Candace would bring it up colloquially? Would say that was colloquial claims?
What I'm saying is that Trump beat ABC, even though they're saying it was an opinion show, all this other stuff. He won, right? He won because, and the distinction here was he didn't. The jury said he committed assault, not blank. But when she appealed, when she went back and said, "Hey, he defamed me again, give me more money," the judge in the second case said, "Hey, people know the word what happened, the assault that happened. They would colloquially say it's blank." And then
instead of blank, can you just say like mockingbird or something like
yes,
it's
mockingbird or grape,
right.
grape, like grape.
Okay.
So he said that people colloquially, and then pay, and then said Trump owes her more money. So that's what I'm saying. That distinction between grape and assault, ABC had to pay what, a couple of million. How many millions did they have to pay, and an apology? So at this point in time, Macron is saying, hey, she's not only said that, but she said all these other things. So in other words, I'm saying that Trump won over something which I thought was 50-50 too, and he won big. I'm thinking Macron's argument or Macron's side may have a better chance than we're giving it based on what happened with Trump. And I think that's why they sued in state court, because they think that they may have a better chance.
I think that's possible. It's also, there seems to be, when it comes to the law, to support that notion, there seems to be like sort of like cultural shifts as to like allowing everyone to get away with something or versus cracking down on something. We see this happen all the time, and that will frequently manifest in the law. Like, the Me Too movement became really hot, and then it basically died. And we see that there's, in the 60s, when things started, laws started evolving, and we got this whole New York Times versus Sullivan, because it was like about speaking truth to power and people being freer to speak. So you sort of can see how culturally the law will manifest a lot of what's happening culturally. So to the extent that there is more accountability, that people have been frustrated, that folks can just basically lie and lie and lie and lie, and then stand behind that lie, not face consequences of defamation by saying, well, I'm just opinion or whatever. I think we're starting potentially to see a kickback on that, which would make sense because people are frustrated with the complete absence of truth that we have in our culture today. We're living in a post-truth world right now where,
the other thing
accountability for that makes sense.
The other thing is when you're comparing Candace Owens lawsuit and the Trump and lawsuits and things like that, talking about the $16 million settlement and they have to play nice by Trump. Remember, there's also a merger between Paramount and Skydance that's being held up right now. And Trump was the one that was going to be able to authorize that merger. So that also came into play as to why that case settled. So you can't. It's not apples.
The ABC case though. The ABC case because that's Paramount.
Mm-hmm.
ABC that's CBS. Paramount is CBS. This is
ABC settled independently.
And this
this headline is BS. It's a lie.
Of course, it's a lie.
No,
but
the judge didn't find this. The judge didn't say that Trump was found to have grape or groped E. Jean Carroll. It was colloquially people say it that way because a jury actually specifically found he did not do that in the E. Jean Carroll underlying case. They specifically said that. That's what made this such a ridiculous decision from the judge.
And the people who speak in colloquialisms made a distinction. A jury did, yes, and that should be a distinction.
This is what the judge said. He added that the jury clearly found that Trump graped, and in the sense that the terms broader than the New York Penal Code definition. So this is as parsing it as it possibly gets. But Trump now, ABC said this, right? They said, hey, a judge said this to be true, and they still lost on defamation. Now, if you gave me this fact pattern, you're telling me you wouldn't believe ABC could win? I would have thought ABC could win. But here they lost. And you do have a judge say.
Well, they settled. I mean, they didn't lose.
Well, they settled, but again,
But yeah, well, here's the thing. If you lose, you've set a massive problem for the rest. Like, sometimes it's like, do you really want to risk such a bad precedent? Because this one's kind of one where you're kind of pushing it, where like, yeah, it's a horrible argument to come in there and make. Like, look, we all know what it meant. It's like, well, no, the jury said X. Also, remember, E. Jean Carroll says women like to be raped, though, too. Remember, she said that.
I
too.
didn't say that. And,
no, E. Jean Carroll said that. She's like, some women like to be raped.
To use the word grape so we don't get.
Yeah, seriously, we've been dancing around this word for like 40 minutes.
On,
I'm sorry. He said someone like
here comes Sean.
They like to be raped.
But so with that, let me just ask you guys before we get out of here: what are the chances that what are the chances that Macron? What do you guys give the Macron's chances? Let's start with MLS.
I say 15%.
15%.
Mainly because it's the president of a nuclear-powered nation, as Joe said. Right? You're going to have to show some sort of actual malice and that people actually believe this. Good luck.
Yeah. Joe.
Yeah, I'm very, very torn about this, but I'm leaning towards Candace winning this one. I'm leaning toward her winning it. But I wouldn't be shocked if I'm proven wrong on this one. But gun to my head, you tell me you have to pick something here. The safe bet is always 95% of all cases settle. So that's the easiest bet to make. But as far as this, the real question is, will this survive a motion to dismiss? If a motion to dismiss is brought, which I don't know that she's implying she's not even going to bring a motion to dismiss. She wants the discovery. So, which her lawyers are probably going nuts over that, right?
Yeah.
Her lawyers are probably like,
I want
the
discovery.
Interrogatories. Isn't it true you're a man? We all know you're a man.
But that goes both ways, though. That discovery cuts both ways. And, and all her communications, all that is, she could, especially if she got some information that says this is absolutely false or something, then she could be up. What do you think, potentially?
We will be 100%. We are going to all have some good laughs out of this. Now, as far as what's going to happen from there, the 100% chance that the French first family looks like clowns before this is over. It's going to settle, but I think like if you really had to give him a chance, I think like 15-25%.
So we all don't feel this is a runaway win for the Macrons. We all feel like this is money at best, and they're going to have a tough time. And that's what I thought. But again, if you want to see different perspectives, Viva and Barnes thinks it's a win for sure. Viva thinks it's a loss for sure. And they're going to argue it
Mhm.
out hopefully this Sunday. Friends of the show. Now, before we get out of here, let me tell you where we can find all of our friends who, again, thanks for joining the panel. Two things before we get out of here. One thing, Hulk Hogan dying. It shocked me because I am a huge wrestling fan. I don't know if you guys see the back, but I literally have Bret Hart, and so I was a huge wrestling fan. I know it was funny because somebody was bothering me. I said, "Oh, you love this racist." I'm like, I don't, it's like I grew up eating my vitamins, working out. I loved Hulk Hogan, and yes, he had a bad moment. He said those bad things. But I can play you interview of black wrestlers saying how he was the blackest wrestler. He treated them so well, and he helped them get to the top of the pinnacle. So it's one of those things where I appreciate him dying. It was almost feeling like the death of my childhood because I was so much of a big WWF fan back then, if you know what I mean. And the same thing with Theo Huxtable. Watching, that was like, oh my God. And Ozzy Osbourne, it's kind of like this was a tough weekend. For their families, again, I feel for them, and I
Nate apparently doesn't like Chuck Mangione though.
Chuck Mangione, but so that I want to just give a shout out to recognize that. But let's go around the panel. I'll start. Usually we end with Joe, but I'm going to start with Joe. Joe, tell people what you got coming up, where to find you, and what's up.
All right, so I am Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I live stream talking about law, politics, and life, and I'm also busting my tail trying to figure out how to make videos that'll be a tenth as good as Nate the Lawyer's. So and I'm expecting people to producing content in that realm very soon. So look for that. And specifically about the topic we were arguing about, breaking down the presidential immunity. That's the one that's the video I've been working on for the last 2 days, which I'm supposed to get done in 2 hours, and I'm 2 days into it and I haven't even started the video work. So
all right, so we'll keep a clear eye out for that, especially some good legal content. What's up, Sean? Sean, potentially criminal. What's going on? And can you give us an update on any of the crazy stuff that you follow? Because I know you followed the Ricada sometime with the guy. I think the guy got arrested again and all that stuff.
No, well, there's now like a restraining order thing because in Minnesota they have what's called a harassment restraining order, which is
HRO.
like the goofiest thing ever. It's like like here in Ohio, you got to prove like stalking to get a protection order. You can't just be like, well, they're making fun of like either way. But anyways, yes, the thing is now these guys can't quit each other. I know they're going to say but
I think Aaron Imholtz's attorney can quit him.
Well, yes.
that happened.
Yes. For two guys who are clearly not in a relationship or had feelings for each other, they really can't not stop talking about each other, which is very much a whole as Michael Bolton once said,
some of the divorce cases I handle.
Yeah. Well, Michael Bolton said it best. How can we be lovers if we can't be friends?
So what do you got coming up, bro?
Well, one of the things I'm going to get into is starting to look at is the Aaron Spencer case. It's out of Arkansas. I don't understand how this guy, his daughter gets abducted after she's already been assaulted by this PDF file. He's already been arraigned. The court says stay away from this victim. Somehow he coaxes the victim out into a car in the middle of the night, takes her away. Dad gets to do like the biggest hostage rescue fantasy thing ever. Chases him down in a car, runs him off the road, and then something happens and the pedophile is full of holes at the end. And he's like, I had to kill him. And they somehow charge this guy with murder. And then the judge puts out such an insane gag order that nobody is allowed to talk about the case. And he even restrained people that aren't part of the case, like Aaron Spencer's family members, from talking about it. And now finally the Arkansas Supreme Court's like, no, this wasn't legitimate. And now we're finally learning parts of the story. And it's just like, this jury's going to take him out to a steak dinner afterwards. I don't know why they're prosecuting him.
Well,
that'll be an interesting one.
A very interesting case. What do you guys coming up, MLS?
Well, I don't have any particular cases that I'm following right now that I have streams coming up about. There is a case, an oxygen chamber explosion in Michigan where a 5-year-old child died. It's an interesting case because they're charging all the CEOs and everybody that were involved with this. particular case. But I have actually I have Sean coming up in a couple of weeks on a Lego stream.
Cool.
So we have that coming up, and if you guys don't know, I do have a stream we do a couple times a month on Saturdays, where we mess with Legos, have a few drinks, and a casual laid-back interview stream with various guests. Sean's coming up in a few weeks. I heard Nate the lawyer is interested, so we're looking forward to that. Joe's been on before, so I have those coming up actually like in the next 3 weeks in a row. So you don't want to miss those.
They are fun. It's a lot of fun. You guys are gonna enjoy it.
Well, I'm just doing I'm doing a Glorilla case. I don't know if you guys heard. Some people broke into her house. She came down, pop, shoots. They run. Cops come in, doing the report, smell marijuana in the house, then go and get a search warrant, search and find marijuana in her house, and now she's up on felony marijuana charges. So people are saying that this is one of the most ridiculous cases they've ever seen, because she's the victim and now you've arrested her. So that's an interesting little case, and the cops are taking some heat down there in where she's at. So that's going to be something interesting. And then obviously we're still covering all the rest of the stuff. But for those of you who are looking for Eric, he will be back next week with Laid Back Law. Please go visit the attorneys there. Links are in the description. This was an extremely interesting panel, and obviously you can tell we don't always agree. But if you want to come and learn something, which I know you've had to learn something from this stream because we laid it all out here. See you next week. Thanks again to the guests, and we're out. Peace. End stream.